Alright, we're ready for the granddaddy topic of all. Order of operations with rational numbers. We're looking at negatives, fractions, decimals, and we've got to do order of operations or BEDMAS. So, not going to spend a lot of time reminding you of this because you know this. B, brackets, E, exponents, D, division, M, multiplication, A, addition, S, subtraction. That is the correct order to do math in. And also remember that if you come down to a division and multiplication steps, you go from left to right. They're kind of equal to each other. And if you come down to addition and subtraction steps, you go from left to right. They're kind of equal to each other. So what do we got here? We have got in this first question an addition step and a division step. And that's it. There's add and divide. What should you do first? Well, BEDMAS tells us to divide first. But remember, when you have this situation where you have like the big long divide bar, it kind of makes everything in brackets above it and everything in brackets below it. It's kind of like you have invisible brackets here and there's invisible brackets here. You can't actually divide until you add the top there. So that's the first thing you're going to do, is you're going to add negative 3.86 and 4.2. So let's remember how to do that. It's an adding question, so we don't need to change anything. So we ask ourselves, what do you have more of, positives or negatives? You have negative 3 and some more negatives, and you have positive 4 and some more positives. So you have more positives. So for this first bit up here, we know our answer is going to be positive. I'll just write it right here. And now, should we add or subtract? Well, we have different signs. This is a negative and this one's a positive, which actually means we should subtract. When the signs are different, we should subtract. Remember, don't go 3.86 minus 4.2. You got to take the big one first. So we're actually going to do 4.2 minus 3 point, decimals line up, right? 86. And we should fill in the space here with a 0. And now we can actually subtract, sorry. Can't subtract this, so we got to borrow from the 1. And now we have 10 minus 6, which is 4. Can't subtract this, so we borrow from the 4. Now we have 11 minus 8, which is 3. And you can do 3 minus 3, which is 0. Bring the decimal straight down. And we said it would be positive. So this is our answer so far. It's 0.34. And I'm actually going to put the positive there. So now what we have to do is take that positive 0.34 and we're going to divide it by negative 0.005. Okay, how do we do this? Well, first thing, is our answer going to be positive or negative? When you're dividing and you divide a positive by a negative, you get a negative. Remember, if you only have one negative, it's going to be negative. So we know our answer is negative. And now we're going to long divide. But when we long divide, remember, we don't want to have any decimals in the divisor here. So we're going to have to move that decimal over 1, 2, 3 spots, which is the same as multiplying by 1,000. 1, 2, 3. So we got to move this one over 3 spots too. 1, 2. Oh, the third one, we make a space there to put a 0. So you would have 340 divided by, move this one over 3 spots too. 1, 2, 3, 5. Oh, you actually end up with no decimals at all this one. So pretty straightforward long division question. 5 into 340. There's our decimal. I know it goes straight up, but I don't think you'll have to worry about it in this question. Wish I'd made this harder actually. 5 goes into 3? No. 5 goes into 34? Yes. 6 times. 6 times 5 is 30. Subtract. 4 left over. Bring down the 0, and 5 goes into 40. 8 times. 8 times 5 is 40. Subtract to get 0. We did it. Our answer is 68. But remember, we said it would be negative. So our final answer is negative 68. Okay, one more with decimals here. Wow, look at this one. We actually do have some brackets right here. That's a bracketed statement right there. So that's the first thing we should do. And it is a subtraction question. We don't want to subtract. So I'm going to keep the first number the same. I'm going to make it an adding question, and I'm going to change this to the opposite, which would be 7.2. So this is what I have to do. Oh, sorry, positive 7.2 if you want me to do it that way. All right, what do you have more, positives or negatives? You have more positives. You have 7 here, only 5 negatives. So we know our answer is going to be positive for this bit. Now, should I be adding or subtracting? Well, we have different signs again. So we're going to have to subtract again. So what we're actually going to do is 7.2, take the bigger one, take away 5.01. Put a 0 in the space and subtract. Can't do that, so we borrow from here. So you have 10 minus 1 is 9, 1 minus 0 is 1, 7 minus 5 is 2, and we put the decimal straight down. We said the answer would be positive. So far we're good. Alright, let's rewrite what we've got here. We've got 4.2 squared minus 3.1, and then in this whole highlighted bit, we figured out it was 2.19. What's the next thing we should do? We do have a bracket here, but there's nothing to do in that bracket. It's just like a holder bracket. So the next thing to do, of course, is the exponent. We got to do this, 4.2 squared. How do you do that? Well, what does 4.2 squared mean? It means 4.2 times 4.2. So how do you multiply decimals? Just ignore them for a bit. 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 times 4 is 8. We put down a 0. 4 times 2 is 8, and 4 times 4 is 16. And we add. So you get 4, 8 plus 8 is 16, 1 plus 6 is 7, and 1. Where do we put the decimal? Remember, we have two numbers after the decimal points here, so we have to have two numbers after the decimal points in our answer. So we should put it right there. There's our two numbers after the decimal points. And did I say? Well, this was a positive times a positive, so obviously it's going to be positive. So this is positive 17.64. Let me rewrite it again. Instead of the highlighted bit, I just got 17.64 minus 3.1 bracket 2.19. Now what everyone wants to do at this point is look at this nice little 17.64 minus 3.1. I should do that, right? No, because this is a multiplication step, the 3.1 times 2.19. So that is actually what you have to do. Multiplication comes before subtraction. So we need to multiply 3.1 times 2.19. Now when you multiply, order doesn't matter. So personally, you don't have to do it this way, but I'm going to put the bigger one, the one with more values, I'm going to put that one on top and 3.1 on the bottom. You don't need to line up your decimals when you multiply. Alright, 1 times 9 is 9, 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 2 is 2, put down a 0. 3 times 9 is 27, carry the 2. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5, and 3 times 2 is 6. Now we're going to add those together. So we get 9, 8, 7, 6, and this time we had how many numbers after decimals? 1, 2, 3. So we have to have the same in our answer. It should be right here. There's our 1, 2, 3 after the decimal. Okay, we only have one last step. It is taking our 17.64 and subtracting 6.789. Now, it is a subtraction question. You couldn't make it add the opposite. But look, this just looks like a average, normal, grade 6 or 7 decimal question. We can do this in one go. We don't have to worry about adding the opposite. You still can if you want, but we can do this. We're just going to line up our decimals. So 17.64 and 6.789. Fill in the space with a 0 and subtract. Borrow from the 4, so this becomes 1. Borrow from the 5, so this becomes 5. Borrow from the 7, so this becomes 8. 6 minus 6 is 0, still got the 1. Move the decimal straight down, and that's our final answer. 10.851. We are done. Okay, let's go on to fractions. Oh my gosh, look at this mess. So what do we got here? Well, on the top we have a subtraction question that we have to do, and on the bottom we have an addition question we have to do. Then we can do the division. So let's start with the top here. I'll do everything improper since we're going to divide anyway and we're going to have to switch it to improper. Let's do that. So I have negative 5 times 3 is 15 plus 1 is 16 over 3 minus, well, wait a minute, I don't want to subtract, I want to add. So let's add, and the opposite of positive 2 is negative. And then 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5 over 2. Okay, now we can figure out whether this is going to be a positive or a negative answer. I have negatives and I have more negatives. Oh, well then our answer is definitely going to be negative, right? They're working together to get even more negatives. Should I add or subtract? Well, they're the same sign, so you should add. So you should do 16 over 3 plus 5 over 2 and then make your answer negative. Alright, we need common denominators, which will be 6. What do you multiply the 3 by to get 6? 2, do the same to the top. What do you multiply the 2 by? 3, do the same to the top. So when we multiply 16 by 2, we get 32. And when you multiply 5 by 3, you get 15. Now we can get this answer. Keep the 6 the same. 32 plus 15 is 47 over 6. That's in lowest terms. I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to make it mixed because we're going to eventually divide. Alright, now I have to do this step here. So I'll do that in blue to show I'm doing the blue part. So again, I'm going to make it improper. Negative 4 times 4 is 16 plus 3 is 19. So negative 19 over 4. And then plus 7 times 3 is 21 plus 2 is 23. So positive 23 over 3. Okay, it's an addition question. We don't need to change anything. What do you have more of, positives or negatives? It's actually kind of hard to tell right now, isn't it? So here's what you do. Get your common denominators first and then we'll decide. So common denominator is 12. You multiply this one by 3 and this one by 4. So when you multiply by this by 3, you get 57. I'm going to keep the negative for now because I don't know if I have more positives or negatives. And when I multiply this by 4, I get 92. That's positive 92. Well, now it's clear. I definitely have more positives in this question. 92 is bigger than 57, so I know my answer is going to be positive. And the signs are different, negative and positive. So should I be adding or subtracting? You should be subtracting at this point. So what you should actually be doing is taking the bigger amount, which is 92 over 12, and you should be subtracting the smaller amount, which is 57 over 12. So the denominator stays the same. 92 minus 57 is 35. And we said that answer was positive. By the way back here, were you screaming at me the last couple of minutes? This should be a negative answer. Okay? So our last question will be the yellow highlighted one, which was this answer, divided by the blue highlighted one, which was this one. So in other words, we have negative 47 over 6 divided by 35 over 12. Now when we divide, of course, if you have one negative, the answer is going to be negative. So we know that already. It's going to be a negative answer. And of course when you divide, you keep the first one the same. You multiply and flip the second one. Remember, you're allowed to ninja slice. So we can ninja slice these and get 1 and 2. On the top, we have 47 times 2, which is 94. And on the bottom, we have 1 times 35, which is 35. Got to make our answer negative. Want to make it mixed? How many 35s go into 34? 2, which takes us up to 70, and you still have 24 over 35 left. Don't forget to make it negative like I almost did, and you're done. Good Lord, look at the next one. Wow, there's a lot to do here. So we have this bracketed part here. These brackets are just holder brackets. They're not really doing anything. So this is the first bit we should do here. Let's make it an adding question. So it should be 8, or positive 8, plus, and this is a positive 12 here, so it should become a negative 12 and 10 11ths. Put those in brackets if you want. So what do you have more of, positives or negatives? Definitely more negatives this time. I'll put it over here. Should we add or subtract? We should subtract because they have different signs. So remember, you're going to take the big one, which is 12 and 10 11ths, and you're going to subtract the small one, which is just 8. Oh gosh, please do not switch this into improper. Look at how easy this is. Just subtract the big numbers, and you get 4, and you still have 10 11ths here. And you make it negative. That part's all done. But wait, you have to square that. So we have to actually multiply this by itself. Well, in order to do that, we do need to put this into improper. So you're going to have negative 4 times 11 is 44, plus 10 is 54 over 11. Uh-oh, this is a terrible question. And then you have to square that, so you have to multiply it by itself, 54 over 11. Two negatives make a positive, so it's going to be a positive answer. The denominator, 11 times 11 is 121. Break out the calculators, people. I don't know what 54 times 54 is. Ends up it's 2,916. I'm sorry, this is a ridiculous question. Okay, so we've got all that. We've squared it, right? We've done all that. Now we have takeaway, and we have to figure out what all this is equal to. Well, look, that's all multiplication. We can do this all in one go. So let's do that. We have 4/5. We have negative 10, but let's make it negative 10 over 1. And we have negative, oh, let's make this improper. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 1 is negative 13 over 2. Two negatives, which means our answer is going to be positive, so that's good. And finally we can do our ninja slicing. What do you see? I see the 5 and the 10, which would become 1 and 2, because they can both divide by 5. I see a 2 and a 2, which can both become 1s. And I guess that's it. So on the bottom, you have 1 times 1 times 1, which is just 1. And on the top, you have 4 times 1 times 13, which is 52. So really, you just have 52, or 52 over 1. Which means our final question should be this 2,916 over 121 minus this whole blue highlighted part, which we found was 52, or 52 over 1. How do we do this? We have to get common denominators. Yes, the common denominator is 121. This stays the same, obviously. And get the calculators out again. You got to multiply this by 121, no problem, and multiply this by 121. And you'll get 6,292. Uh-oh, running out of room. We would like to make this a adding question. So when we add the opposite, I'm going to cheat here to save space. I'm going to keep the first one the same, add, and the opposite of this positive is a negative. Alright, what do you have more, positives or negatives? Definitely negative. 6,000 is more than 2,000, so it's going to be a negative answer. And do you need to add or subtract? Remember, this is a positive, this is a negative. Those are different. You got to subtract. Take the big one first. So 6,292 over 121 minus 2,916 over 121. Denominator stays the same. Calculator time. 6,292 minus 2,916 is equal to 3,376. And remember, it's going to be negative. Do you really want to put that in mixed form? How many 121s go into 3,376? Well, if you insist, it's going to be 27 with 109 left over, and the denominator stays the same. But come on, why would you do that? You would just leave it improper, wouldn't you? Oh, and make it negative. So that's it. Okay, I think I'll just do one more here. Look at this, the dreaded decimals and fractions in the same question. Now, the tendency for people is they switch the fractions into decimals because it's easy to do. You just go 2 divided by 3. You know what the problem is? So many fractions, when you divide it, you don't get a terminating decimal. You get a repeating. Like this would be 0.6666. And as soon as you round it, you've lost accuracy. If you want total accuracy, you need to keep this in fractions. So that's what I would encourage you to do, is to do it all in fractions. Remember how to do that? If this is 0.8, what place value is this 8 in? That's the tenths position. So this is actually 8 tenths divided by, okay, negative, we got to switch this one too. 1, and what position is this 5 in? It's in the tenths, so 5 tenths. Now I know a lot of you know 0.5 is a half, and you could have just done that right away, but just so you understand that, that's in the tenth spot, so 5 tenths. This last one's already a fraction, we're happy with that, and we're going to square it. So there's actually 2 fractions you could put in lowest terms. You might as well make it a little bit easier. 8 over 10, you can divide them both by 2, you get 4/5, divided by negative 1, and 5 over 10, divide them both by 5, you get a half, plus 2/3 squared. And now it's a question with all fractions, right? And you could do this, and I guess very quickly I could do this. This needs to be done first because it's in brackets. So let's see, switch this into improper, and you get negative 3/2 plus 2/3. And this is positive, of course. Do you know which one's bigger? If not, that's fine. Just get your common denominators. Common denominator of 2 and 3 is 6. What do you have to multiply the 2 by? 3. Do the same to the top. What do you multiply 3 by? 2. Do the same to the top. So what do we have? 3 times 3 is 9. So you have negative 9 here. And 2 times 2 is 4. We definitely have more negatives than positives. So we know our answer is going to be negative. And since they're different signs, this one's negative and this one's positive, you actually want to subtract. So you would be doing 9/6 minus 4/6, which equals 5/6. And don't forget, it's going to be negative. Okay, the next thing we have to do is square that amount. So let's do that right now. We have negative 5/6, and we're going to multiply it by itself. Negative 5/6 times negative 5/6. 2 negatives make a positive, and 5 times 5 is 25, 6 times 6 is 36. That's good. Last step is we got to go 4/5 divided by the answer we just got. Now do it in the right order. It's 4/5 divided by the answer we just got, 25 over 36. Oh, it's so tempting to ninja slice. Don't do it, because you haven't flipped yet. This is the same as 4/5 times, flip this one, 36 over 25. And if you ninja slice that, you can't ninja slice. Oh, that's so sad. You can't do anything there. You're good to multiply. The bottom, 5 times 25 is 125, and the top, 4 times 36 is 144. There's a good answer, or if you want, goes in one time with 19 left over, and the denominator stays the same. Okay, everyone, that's about as hard as these rational numbers get. I hope that makes sense, and I know it's hard. Don't give up. You got this.